Hello and welcome to day 2 of the Exploring Planet Earth project. Now what we've moved on to now is the rock cycle. So yesterday you should have looked at the 3 different types of rock: sedimentary, igneous and metamorphic. And what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how each one is related to the other and how each one can be changed from one to the other. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have a look at these 4 images. You're going to tell me what these 4 images have in common. So that's part 1. You're going to write down what each image is telling you. So you might want to describe it. And you're going to write down 5 keywords about each image. So this first one, I might say that it is the cycle of the moon. You've got a full moon going into a half moon, going into a crescent moon, or any other words that you can think of, because I'm sure you know this a lot better than I do. Now, you also need to think of 5 key words. So I might say the moon, I might say rock, I might say half moon, crescent moon, and I might say eclipse. So you are coming up with 5 key words and a description of each cycle. So you've got this one, which is the life cycle of a frog. You have the life cycle of flowering plants. So I would actually, for this one, start with either pollination or seed formation and go around from there. Now, the next one is the water cycle, and you will have learned a little bit about the water cycle, so do your best with that one as well, but I'm pretty sure that you can pick 5 keywords from there, as well as think of some that might not be on there. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at what the rock cycle is. So the rock cycle is a process that changes one rock type, so the igneous, a metamorphic or the sedimentary, to another. And it shows how the materials are recycled over millions of years. Because the rock that exists is rock that maybe was one type of rock at one point and has become this type of rock. And it'll become another type of rock again in a million years when it goes through the rock cycle. What we're going to do, we're going to read about the rock cycle and answer the questions on the next slides. So question 1 is this mix and match, which should be quite easy for you because you did that yesterday. The next slide has 2 to 9, so it's got 8 questions that relates to the information you're going to have. And you've got question 10, which is a diagram, and you have to put the labels in. So I would say if I wasn't able to edit the PowerPoint for any reason, I'll put 1 what it was, 2 what it was, and 3 what it was. This activity should take around 10 minutes. Now, if you click on the information, it will take you to BBC Bitesize. This is a really good website, year 7 and 8. You should be on this website all the time, reading about things and looking things up, because it is really interesting, really important that you stay on top of what you're learning, because next year, especially year 8, you are going into year 9, which is when you look at more of your GCSE stuff, and year 7, you don't want to be behind in year 8 before you even get to year 9. So make sure you're just keeping up to date and you're having a look and you're doing any work set. Now, I'm going to go very slowly through this page for anybody that doesn't have access to it or can't, or the link doesn't work for whatever reason. So the first page is biological weathering. Pause the video if you want to read that because you can't get onto the link. And there's a little tiny bit at the bottom and it tells you all about what that is. If we click next, you have this one, which I think is chemical weathering. It is, so my favorite, chemical weathering. And I'll pause there again, so pause if you need to read it from here. And there's a little bit at the bottom that tells you about acid rain. And then you have the next one. So you've done biological, you've done chemical, you're now going to do physical weathering. Again, I'll go slowly, I'll pause and stop on the information, pause the video if you can't access the link. So you've got physical weathering, and there's a few different types of physical weathering for you to actually read about and get to know. And the questions are related to the information on the page. Now on page 4, it changes up a little bit and you get erosion and transportation. It's important you know the difference between weathering and erosion because they're not the same thing, and they often get confusion because we do say that something erodes and it breaks down, but when you're talking about the rock cycle, you're talking about it being transported. And there you go, a little bit about how it's transported and what happens to the rock when it changes, when it is being transported. Now on page 5, you've got the rock cycle. So the rock cycle, reminding you of your 3 types of rock, what's happening. So what I've just said, that it continually happens over and over again and the rocks change from one type to another and they don't stay the same type. And at the very bottom, you have a very complicated diagram. Get another diagram, think about the diagram, because it is just telling you about this cycle. It is just telling you that it starts here and it goes round in a continuous flow. And if you go underneath, there's actually a lovely little description part here, so you can match up what's happening. So A, weathering and erosion, 2, the picture. So the weathering and erosion is happening here at the top of this mountain. So make sure you read through these because all of these will be important for this and also be important for the next task. Now today you've only got this task and the next task because the next task can take quite a little bit of time. Now there is a video that tells you about what we would have done in class. So this lady is doing exactly what I would have done to teach this. So make sure you watch that video if you have time. If you think you understand the rock cycle, you don't necessarily need to watch it. And we will try and do this when we get back to school. Now, the next part is creating a storyboard. Now, when I thought about this, I thought about maybe some people might want to do it on the computer. So I created this on the computer, this little storyboard here that tells you very, very simply about what's happening in the rock cycle. You might want to do it on a piece of paper. If you do it on a piece of paper and you can't take a photo of it and send it to me, then just keep the piece of paper. And what we'll do is we will have some kind of competition for who has the best storyboard. And when I've done this in the past in other schools, I've had some really good ones. There's a template you might want to use. Here is somebody that did one before. Now this one there's not a lot of information, but it tells the story of how a sediment goes from being a sediment to being all different types of rock and then being a sediment again. Yay, I'm a sediment again. So that's a good one. This one, someone did Patrick from SpongeBob, and his house basically went through the rock cycle and he ended up coming back and his home was there again because the rock had changed through the different types and gone back to being whatever Patrick's house was made out of. And this one is a more complicated one, but again, if you read through it, it'll give you some really good ideas. And the brighter, the better, maybe the funny, anything like that is going to be perfect. And we'll have some kind of competition for this when we get back. Now, that is all I want you to do today. There is a video at the end, which is another song, because I love the songs about the rock cycle and things. You might say a common theme. And if you need any help, again, feel free to ask your teacher or to email me directly. So again, 3 tasks. This one should take around 10 minutes. You then have the question task, which should take around 10 minutes as well. There's a little bit extra there if you want to watch the videos or you want to find out more about the rock cycle. And then there's the storyboard, which should take 20 minutes. So in total, this lesson is only about 50 minutes long, if 5 minutes for extra time on the comic strip or whatever else you need. So I hope you're staying safe. I hope you enjoy doing these activities and come back tomorrow for the last task, which will be looking at how we use the different materials that we get from the earth. So linking back to the first lesson when we talked about the fact that you've got the different layers, what do we do with the stuff that we get from the earth? I'll get back to you tomorrow. Bye.